Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sediko, the trustee and the founder of the Progressive Socio-Economic Investment Institute. It is a public benefit trust that was established to implement public benefit activities. Some of those activities include hosting webinars on various topics. Today, we'll be looking at a topic on polygamy. There are those who believe in polygamy, and there are those who don't believe in polygamy. And there are those who don't have a view on polygamy. All these are respected. Today, colleagues will be looking at this topic of polygamy as a 21st century solution. We are so blessed, colleagues, that in our midst we have got a brother, Mr. Ntandazo Jibilika, who's an author, a spiritualist, and also a businessman, who will take us through this topic and we'll have an interaction with Mr. Jibilika on this topic of polygamy, a 21st century solution. We've got our colleagues who are logging in on Facebook also and other media platforms. Feel free also to interact with us in those platforms. Thank you so much. Over to you, Mr. Nick Jibilika.
Thank you, sir. I feel very much honored to be in the midst of you. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you, Mr. Jibilika. We can hear you.
Okay, just my camera is not on. I feel very much honored to be in the midst of you as we discuss the subject of polygamy. It's a very, very actually big topic because of it is not just about polygamy, but it touches even other aspects such as spirituality, because of there's no way that you can understand polygamy without understanding at the same time African spirituality. And I think that is where a lot of people make a mistake because of they're trying to cut the subject from the stem without going to the roots. Now, in our esteem, with the issue of polygamy goes way back. If you read the book of Chancellor Williams, The Destruction of Black Civilizations, where he talks about Africans and our spirituality and our high moral standards, there's a part that I love where he says that Africans could not, even if they wanted to, they could not have avoided to be involved in polygamy because of their high spiritual standards. Because of in Africa, there are certain things that we understand. Umuntu wesifazane, when you are when you're going through certain seasons, for an example, when you're on your periods, there are things that you are not able to do. When you are breastfeeding, there are things that you're not allowed to do, such as sleeping with a man. When you're pregnant and all those kind of things. So because of we valued life, we valued a number of these aspects, and that's the reason why you will have indaba esteem, which, the word polygamy actually, the English word, it doesn't put it right, because of if you go back to isintu, isithembu ukwelamisa, which it gives you a better understanding than when you say polygamy in English, because when you say polygamy, it's like, okay, fine, you are just sleeping with more than one person, so you can be in polygamy. But when you say ukwelamisa, then it brings a particular dignity with it, to say that this is not just something that was done because of man's promiscuity, but it was done because of, certain values that we held as abantu abamnyama, such as back in the days, we were tillers of the land. We had livestock. Now you find in this family, for an example, is the husband and wife, and then the land is growing. There's so much work to be done, and all these things. And because of we didn't have slaves, so what will happen is that either the woman will go out and say, or the father will say, and then there will be somebody else that the husband will marry to come in, and that person will come and assist with the growth of the family, not just in terms of childbearing, but even in terms of the management of the land and the livestock. And the more you grow, the more the men will marry. And that is why you find we had large families. And it was a family that will grow from that element of being a family to a community to a society. And that is why you find that most of us, siphuma ebukhosini, when we talk about uphuma ebukhosini, is because we came from large families. And the very same system today, it is still applicable, because if you look at what the Arabs are doing and what the Jews are doing, they are doing the very same, applying the very same system that our ancestors were applying in land. They are applying it in their businesses, whereby you find that one man has got 2, 3, 4 wives, and they are managing the businesses. When they talk about my boss, they're talking about the husband, and they are the wives, and the kids, they're being trained and groomed to manage the business. So everything is done in-house. It's only with us as Africans where you find the idea of bringing women together under one umbrella and having the very same concept of actually establishing your own kingdom, or maybe establishing your own family, excuse me, by running businesses and all these things. We don't think it like that. Immediately we think about this tame or a polygamy. The first thing that comes across our minds is the fact that this woman is going to share my husband with me. Or lo baba sekaqala ukuganga, sekafuna ukujona manje. You see, that's how far we have reduced indaba yesithembu. We don't see the bigger picture as far as polygamy is concerned. I don't know if I'm making sense now.
We are still following you, Mr. Jibilika. You can continue. And when you are done, we'll allow people to ask questions, and also those who are in Facebook will also pose some questions.
Okay. So then, now that's the thing. The thing is that because of we don't have the background of who we are as Africans, for us, the very same thing that we started, which was esteem, because of, remember, everything started with us. The very same thing that we started as esteem, today we frown and we look at it as a subject that is degrading women, that is oppressing women, that is, pushing for male chauvinism. Yet other races that actually learned polygamy from us, which is China, for an example, the Arabs and the Jews and all these people, they've got a different view. I mean, China today is overpopulated, not necessarily because of these foreigners. China is overpopulated because of, in China, if you go to the rural areas, a man will be working with 4 wives, and then ushela into will be konala, and it's not something that they look at it as if maybe it's taboo, because of they've got a different mindset. I always tell people when I talk about polygamy that the reason why you will have a problem with polygamy, it depends who colonized you. That's the reason why you'll have a problem with polygamy. You don't have a problem with polygamy because of or you understand polygamy. You have a problem with polygamy due to the programming that you received from those who colonized you. And that's the reason why you'll find that all of us in the planet, we may all confess God, because others, they use the Bible to hide and fight the idea of polygamy. We may all confess God, but you find that people in different countries, there's others who are monogamous and they're still calling upon God, and there's others who are polygamous and they're still calling upon God, and they're all well received. It depends on where are you born and who colonized you, who programmed your mind. But polygamy on its own, it has got no problem. So, and the sad story about it is that it started with Black people. Everything started with Black people. And I feel that the more we are educated about the subject, it eliminates a lot of things. If you look at what is happening today, we've got a lot of social ills. The issue of single parenting, it has tended to be the norm. The issue of us having street kids, it has tended to be the norm. The issue of now, this is even worse, homosexuality. People, men who were straight and all of a sudden now they become homosexuals. It is tending to be a norm. It's so sad because somehow you start to realize that people lack guidance. People lack guidance. And unfortunately, as much as in our society, we might portray or push for the idea that, women can do without men, women must be independent and all these kind of things. But the truth of the matter is that in any household where there is no leader, where there is no man, there is no father, people there will definitely go astray. The truth of the matter is that men are very much principled. And when you have a father figure in the house, the father is able to give the law, to place down the law, and to say that this is how things are done. And in most cases, I mean, I've got 2 sons from my second wife, and I see they're very young, and they like to challenge my wife. They always like to challenge my wife, but when I'm around, they know how to behave. Now, that part is very much important. But then now, because of our society has been so corrupted, we are pushing this agenda of single parenting. And that is why you find that some of these boys, even these girls, they grow up and they take advantage or they challenge the authority of the mother. And then at the end of the day, certain things, they start happening. And that is why you'll notice that Black society, it is one of the most right now decaying societies. We are decaying. There's no morale. There's nothing, because of the fathers have been removed from their houses. The fathers have been, their mouth has been closed down, and all these kind of things. The issue of me having a child somewhere else and I'm not taking responsibility of that child because of I'm afraid of my wife, and I cannot bring that child close by marrying the mother of that child so that we can all grow together. It's a problem. It's a problem. And that child of mine, whether it's a son or it's a daughter, either, most cases, if it's a son, he will grow up, he will do the same thing. So you're going to have a lot of kids that are growing without their fathers. And the society is accepting that that's normal. And that's why I wrote the book, Can Polygamy Be the Solution in the 21st Century? Can it be a solution? Because if you look at us in the 21st century, we are facing very serious moral decay. And people, when they want to argue about the issues of polygamy, they quickly run to issues of women's rights, as if the issue of women not having a man is okay. Statistically, you've got more women than men. You will always have women who are sharing a man, whether they know or they don't know it. So when we run to women's rights and say that, no, but polygamy, it degrades women, and polygamy, it shows male chauvinism and all these kind of things, then what are we saying about the women who don't have a man? So it's okay for them not to have a man. Are we saying that? Is that what we're trying to push now? That no, the ones who do have men, they are secured. They've got their right family and everything. So the ones who don't have, these are the intruders. So these ones we do not want. So what's supposed to happen with those? Are they not the very same women in the long run that, start having kids and the man does not want to take responsibility and they start single parenting these kids, and these kids, they grow and they come back and become a problem in the society because of they never had proper role models? What are we trying to say? Because everything that you do in the planet is going to come back to you. But if you go back to our history as Africans, our society was whole in the sense that we didn't have any of these social ills that we've got. There was no issue of illegitimacy. There's a book that I just released now, it's titled The Missing Link, where I'm talking about Indaba Kuhlushwa Isibongo. There were no people to be Kuhlushwa Isibongo because of every person grew up knowing ukuthi udabuka kuphi. You know your father because that's your identity. So you know ukuthi ngiphuma kulesa sigodlo. Mina ngingumkhwenazi, mina ngusbewu. Why? Because of what? You know your father. You know where you come from. But then today you've got people abahlushwa isibongo because of they do not know their paternal side, because of they've been actually raised from their maternal side. And the reason why it's like that, it is because of, again, Indaba Isithembu was demonized by the arrival of the colonizers and when they came with their religion. And that's why a lot of people who were practicing polygamy, they were called names, either bazothi unenyoka, or either bazothi, uyaganga, and all these kind of things. Or maybe it was men who didn't have morale. And that's why they had many wives, it was demonized. So a lot of people, they were afraid to be associated with it. And that's why they kept it under wraps, but it has been there. It has been continuing there, but under wraps. And some women won't even disclose to their, colleagues or friends to say that I'm in a polygamous marriage because of what? Because of they were afraid to be judged by other people. And why is it that polygamy an issue? It is because polygamy is a human phenomenon. It's a human phenomenon. Unfortunately, for those who don't want to hear it, it's sad. But men, in general, are wired like that. It's a genetic thing among men in that team. The only challenge that you have is that you need to be able to manage this team circle. And unfortunately, the way our society has been programmed, they are not yet ready to accept the fact that in the actual fact, men are polygamous by nature. There is no medicine. There is no pill. There is no counseling that you're going to give to try and say to a man, don't see another woman. And that is why you're going to have now those who are living a lie, who are not open about it, falling in what you call a scandal. You have President so-and-so, there's a scandal. Pastor so-and-so, there's a scandal. Every time I hear that word, a scandal that he slept with another woman, a scandal that is got a mistress, I always say, there's no scandal there. He just became himself. He just became himself. He's just a man going back to be himself. It becomes a scandal because of our minds have been programmed to believe that if you get another woman, then you are committing sin. And again, that interpretation comes from misinterpreting even the Bible itself. Because remember, there's a difference between adultery and fornication. If you want to use the Bible, adultery is when you sleep with a married woman. But when you sleep with a woman who's not married, in the Hebrew context, you are acquiring another wife. And that is why the intention of you sleeping with her becomes important. Because of once you have seen her nakedness, you cannot allow a situation whereby you do not marry her. Because then it becomes high treason because of you have already seen her nakedness. That's the Hebrew context. So meaning that if you're going to go out of your marriage as a man and sleep with another woman who's not married, by virtue of you sleeping with her, already you have joined your soul with her, so you became one, so you need to take her as your wife. Letting her go, that is when now you are committing a sin. That is now the Hebrew context of the Bible, not what people are quoting. So this topic is a very, very big topic. It's a very, very huge topic because of there's a lot of aspects that comes with the topic. That's why I'm touching the issues of spirituality. That's why I'm touching, going back again to the Bible, because I know a lot of people believe in the Bible, and some of them, they believe in the Bible, but not because of they've actually studied Hebrew. I'm a Hebrew scholar myself. So you need to understand the Bible within the Hebrew context and understand that when they talk about, for an example, a concubine, they're not talking about nyatsi, as we will say. A concubine, it was a woman, a Hebrew woman who would be married by a man, not because of maybe the guy loved her, but maybe she was coming from a background that was not favorable. And to give her a better status, the man will marry her as one of his wives, and then she will come in now as either a second or third wife, not because of anything else, but because the guy wants to give her a better status, because of you were not allowed to own a Hebrew slave. So Hebrews could not enslave their own people. And that is why you cannot have that woman working for you as a servant or as a slave, but you have to marry her. And that's where the issue of concubine comes in. And that's why the issue of the Bible, for example, talking about Abraham and all these other people having concubines, these were Hebrew women who were given a better status of being a wife other than just being a serving girl or a servant, because it's against the Hebrew law. So our people, they don't understand that. And then they say that, no, Abraham, naladinyaz. It's because of you do not know what the book is saying. You have not studied the language. And that's why it's so dangerous, because of we are sometimes having a problem with such kind of things as polygamy and all these kind of things, because of what we quoting we are misquoting the Bible, because we do not know even the language that which the Bible was written in, which is the Hebrew language. You don't understand the language for you to be able to understand what the true meaning of the Bible is. So the word itself, the Bible itself, is not against polygamy. Actually, there is no book that talks about polygamy more than the Bible. And the very same people that you've been told to follow after their own faith, these people were polygamous. And these people, in the actual fact, what's funny is that they found favor with God. And yet, according to you who's colonized, they were being promiscuous. And they were not. It was about building society. Building society. That the society can be whole. If you compare our society back then, during the days of our ancestors, and look at it now, please tell me that right now our society is progressive. Then I will know that definitely there's a problem with you. Because right now, there's nothing but decay. There's nothing but decay. And that is why back in the days in Ntandazo, it was very much important, because when you walk into a space and you meet a girl, you need to explain because chances are that you might be attracted or find yourself getting married to your sister. Because of what? Because of we had large societies. Umuzi oyi-1 wakwaKhumalo bokhona ugcwala Midrand yonke, the whole of Midrand. And they are all relatives. Because of what? Because of they are coming from one ancestor. And that's why the issue of Ntandazo is important. For example, myself, when I go to the Eastern Cape, I don't normally, especially Magnum Sevens, ekhaya, angishayeli, because of I know what everybody's there, uchangisa usikhoma. So uma ngizoqala ngithi ngiyashela noma lokuthi angaba muhle kanjani, I won't win because that's my sister. So I even just tell myself that I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to focus on the savings and that's it. You see? Because of we know this thing that in the actual fact, Ntandazo is very much important, because you can meet someone and you can think that this person, she can be your wife, only to find that that's your sister. And that's why Black people have got totems, because of our families. Our families were very, very large families. But today, we have undermined, degraded, speak bad about these kind of things. And unfortunately, there's nothing good that is coming out of the negative psyche that we have. Again, the issue of Istembu, not pointing again towards just women, but looking at Amadoda at the same time. You need to be a man who's got a vision. You need to know what is it that you are trying to achieve in an team. Because now, you bring them here, and now the question that comes, where are you taking them? What is it that you want to achieve with them? Your vision has to be something that is clear, so that they can be able to see that they fit into your vision. Number two, you can't take more than you can chew, because of we mustn't run away from the issue that, yes, polygamy can be a little bit expensive, especially if you look at today's lifestyle. We're no longer having land where we used to do our farming, where we were eating from the ground. So now you have to go and buy those veggies. You have to go and buy food and all these kind of things. So it can be a little bit expensive. So that is why I normally say that, when people come together to form this kind of a setup, you need to have a plan to say, okay, fine, what is it that us as a family, we're going to make sure that we are growing our family economically? What are we doing? Here you're an accountant. The other one is an attorney. The other one is this. Can we come together and start a family business and use our skills and our expertise to grow our family business? Economically, it does work and it can work. But the challenge about that is the mindset. The mindset has to be right. People must stop becoming petty and they must look into the bigger picture. So you, the guy who is starting this thing, you need to be able to paint the vision to your wives to say, this is where we're heading. This is what I would love to see. I would love to see us achieving. You know, it's very much important. So the vision is very much important. It must be a clear vision. The kids, as they grow, they need to come in and participate in what is happening in the family. So polygamy can be a solution. Polygamy can deal with a number of things as long as the people who are involved in it, their mindset is right. The same thing happens spiritually. I mean, for example, in my house, I've long stopped the issue of saying that we're going to different churches and stuff like that, because I'm going to have a problem. You're going to have that pastor preaching like that, the other one preaching like that, the other one preaching like that. The next thing, your family comes together, and then everybody's got different information. And then all of a sudden now there's issues because of that one interprets the Bible like that one interprets the Bible like that. So I came up with one simple thing, and I said, you know what? I mean, I'm a traditional man, unfortunately, for some people. So la ekhaya, la kwaSibingu, la kwaJibilika, siyaphahla. Sikhuluma nabantu abadala. That's me. I'm not getting involved in the issues of the church. Why? Because of I do not want to have umuzi ongamile. Because of I can tell you right now, different philosophies, different ideas can bring a problem if you are building something like this. That's why kuthiwa isithembu ubukhosi. Ubukhosi buphi? Ubukhosi bokuthi uqhubeka nesibongo nokukhulisa isibongo sakuleli khaya. Ngendlela lekhaya belenza ngakhona izinto has to continue like that. So basically, uma uyindoda yesithembu, you are a preserver of culture and tradition of your family. And once as a king, you start to go and get to be converted into a particular religion. That means ukuthi izwe lonke lizolandela wena, izwe lonke lizolahleka. And that is where you start to notice ukuthi there was always a problem with kings who will be converted into a religion of some sort because of they were no longer representing the culture and the tradition of the people. Now, if you become indoda yesithembu, you need to understand that now you are a steward of the culture and the tradition of your family. You represent your ancestors, meaning that you need to teach your kids how your forefathers were doing things. So there is no power or glory in you going to convert into somebody else's idea of what life must be. So the whole responsibility to a man who becomes a polygamist is a very, very serious responsibility because of you are assuming a position of a king. You're assuming a position of a leader. And you need to be able to stand and have a backbone. Because what are you going to pass down if you don't have a backbone? So becoming a polygamous man, it's a challenge on its own. You can't assume that responsibility if your principles have got elastics. You can't. You need to be a sound man that everybody can look up to say that once the word is out, that word will be fulfilled. It's an enormous responsibility in this temple. So it's not only women who need to learn about this temple, even men. Because us men, we can go out there and have so many wives and all these kind of things and just make babies. But what values are you passing down to those kids? How are you building your family? What principles are you giving your kids? What principles are you giving your wives? In my house, for an example, we self-employed. We try to be self-employed, to say that it becomes pointless to be sending out CVs while we've got 2, 3, 4 heads together that can come together to start something that can uplift the family. Why not putting our heads together and do something that our kids will inherit? Because of one thing for sure, your kids will never inherit your job, but they can always inherit your business. So there's a lot that goes with polygamy. It's not just the issue of having wives. There's a whole lot that goes with it. Am I still on tech? I'm so frustrated because of I'm blank here. I don't see anyone.
You are still there, Mr. Jibilika. And while you are posting, there's a question that came from Facebook which says, just a minute, which says, is there any difference between polygamy and extramarital affairs? That's the question.
There is. And there is a big difference, and that should not be confused with anything else. Remember, it's Tembo. You are getting married, you are settling down. Waka umuzi. Now, we will admit and say, unlike maybe in the olden days, you can't just walk up into a person and say, let's go and get married today. Obviously, now there was going to be dating that has to take place. And I think that's the part where now this person who's asking this question is basing his or her question from. There's going to be part of dating that's going to take place, which now that's an extramarital affair because now you're going to have to date. But initially, it was not done like that. Initially, because of the people back then, they had an open mind and they knew and understood this thing. What will happen is that your wife will be involved in the choosing of, Longoskas. Whether it's a relative, whether it's a friend, or whatever the case might be, but your wife will be involved. Unfortunately, because of now we got to be colonized, for me as a man to start the subject with my wife, it becomes chaotic. There's going to be war. There's going to be fights in the house. So because I'm trying to retain peace in the house, I tend to do things secretly, which that is not okay. But that's how the society is. You're going to have to do it secretly now until your wife maybe can be able to accept, or whatever the case might be. And that's why the issue, Lena, because of umnakwethu is exposing people who are doing things secretly. But you find what the intention of this guy for him to do this thing secretly is because of uzama ukwakha lo mamncane and establish this relationship because of utshela ukuthi ufuna ukumthatha as a second wife. But now maseyiphuma ayisaphumi kahle, ayisazwakali, sekubonakala ukuthi hayi umjolo, because of the first wife does not know. And the reason why he did not tell the first wife is because of he's afraid, I'm going to tell this person, we are going to fight, we might even end up getting divorced. And there's one thing about men, they just want to have peace. But now, that is what I'm saying, there is a difference between umjolo and stem. Extramarital affair, chances are that it might not even end up becoming a family. And it's easy for people to break up. It's easy for people to break up when there is no disclosure, because nobody takes responsibility. I can decide to dump you tomorrow, or she can decide to dump the guy tomorrow, and that's how it is. And then from there, another one comes in, and another one comes in. How many people are you going to have as part of your extramarital issues while you are saying that you are building a stem? Kanmon stem, we know, okay, lo, uyamthatha umamncane, and that's it. And then from there, but at least right now, we've got somebody to point. We've got somebody that we know. Extramarital affairs, a guy can have 3, 4 girlfriends and the wife does not know. And that's where the difference is. Because of he's not taking responsibility, because of he knows Guti, he did not disclose this thing. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Sorry, there's another question on Facebook. You spoke about the Hebrews and the Bible from the Hebrews perspective, but the question that comes is that from one of the Facebook participants is that is polygamy accepted by God?
Yes, 100%. 100%. As a matter of fact, can I tell you why? Remember, that's why it's very much important to talk about the Hebrews, because of you are reading the Bible and you're talking about the God of the Hebrews. So you need to understand the Hebrew context. There was never going to be Jesus or David if Jacob would have only got married to Rachel. Rachel only gave birth to Benjamin and Joseph, and she died. The rest of the tribes, they come from Leah and Joseph's concubines, including Levi, which is the tribe of priesthood, and the tribe of Judah, which is the tribe of kingship. So let's say for those people who are saying that, oh, Adam and Eve, Adam and Eve, Adam and Eve story, without understanding. Let's say, for an example, Joseph would have just got married to Rachel, and there was Jacob would have got married to Rachel, and there was Joseph and Benjamin, and from there Rachel dies. Where was Judah, Levi, Naphtali, all these other tribes, Issachar, and all of them? Where were they going to come from? Where were they going to come from? You see, a lot of us, we don't understand. The plan of the Creator is that be fruitful and multiply. That's it. Be fruitful and multiply. Now, in the how you become fruitful and multiply, whether you become fruitful, multiply under monogamy or polygamy, it's not about the institution of marriage. It's about what sex is meant to do, which is reprocreation. If there is sex with no reprocreation, then that is defilement, that is sin. That is why, if you read the scripture, there was a guy who got killed by God because he was actually throwing the semen down on the floor, not to the wife. And the Bible says, and that looked evil to God, and he killed him. So that shows you that the issue about sex is reprocreation. Now, how do we reprocreate? Whether I reprocreate through one wife or two wives or three wives, it matters not. The thing about when you increase the number of women, the responsibility that you as a man, you need to take is now you need to be able to look after them, because even the book becomes clear that thou shalt not refuse them their rights of sex, roof over their heads, and clothing and food. So you need to look after them if you're going to increase their number. Just like you are looking after one, you need to be able to look after 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. But there's no judgment or anything said about polygamy being wrong. God approves of it. That's how it is. And how do you know that he approves of it? You go and read about David. He says, and the Lord had found a man after his own heart. And he's talking about David. David was after God's heart. But how is it that God says, I found a man after my own heart when he was talking about David? David had 18 wives, 18 wives. If polygamy was a sin, God would have long said, no, David, you are disqualified. How can David be a man after God's heart with 18 wives for those who believe or who think that polygamy is sin? It's because David was taking responsibility. He was growing the community, growing the society. At the end of the day, he was taking responsibility of his actions. He was not having kids running around not knowing their father. So we need to understand the book within context, not quoting it out of context. And unfortunately, that's what has happened with a lot of us, that we go into the church, we run with one scripture. And I know these people who are arguing about polygamy, they quote Paul. Yeah, Paul. This is what Paul said. He said, among you, brethren, if anyone assumes a responsibility or desires to assume a responsibility of being a deacon or a bishop, I advise that he should be a husband of one wife. Why is that? He says, I advise that he should be a husband of one wife. It is because of the responsibility that that person is going to have looking over the church. Because of looking over the church demands a lot of time. So how are you going to have time to look after your 2, 3, 4 wives if you are a leader of the church? That's what Paul was addressing. He was not saying that God is against polygamy or polygamy is sin in the New Testament. And many people, they misquote the book. Now, what if I don't want to become a deacon? I don't want to become a bishop. Then I can still live with my polygamous life. And now listen to what Christians do. Oh, no, we are all called to be deacons and bishops in Christ Jesus. No, nonsense. There is no such. If I do not want to become a deacon, I don't want to become a deacon. You cannot force me into a calling and say, I'm called to be a deacon, I'm called to be a bishop, just because we are trying to fight the issue of polygamy. Because that's what they say. That is not on. If I am refusing, I don't want to become a deacon, I don't want to become a bishop, I've got my all right to be a husband of 2, 3, 4 wives. That's my right. There's no condemnation in that. So God does support polygamy.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Jibilika. Now we can take hands from those who are part of this webinar, who logged in here. but we'll still go back to those who are on Facebook. I saw a hand from Joseph K. Joseph K., it's your time to pose questions or comments.
Thank you very much, sir. I just want to indicate one thing. The issue of the Bible was not written by God. Bible was written by people interpreting relationship between God and the people. And then polygamy, it is not something that was created by God. It is a social construct created by human beings. The society, I thought the speaker will talk about that, is patriarchal. To the extent that everything is male-dominated, male-centered, male-identified, and it has to do with men with obsession to control. That is why the speaker is justifying that polygamy is something that is absolutely correct. It is not divinely ordained. It was not handed by God. And if we put it differently and say, okay, fine, what about polyandry? Whereby you allow women to marry many men, and they will still procreate. So this is about oppression. Polygamy is oppression. As long as men would not allow that for women to express the very same wish and practice, then it is nothing else but oppression. So we should not come and talk about it as if it is something which was handed over by God. And we should not talk about the Bible. That's because where is tradition in the scheme of things? We do not believe in Bible before the arrival of the missionaries ourselves. The Bible is something which was handed over by the missionaries in order to ensure that they are domesticating us so that they can colonize us. That must be mentioned as well. We need to put the matter into context, because you cannot just start with Hebrew and Cain and all these things. We did not know about that. What we knew, we believed in Vadimu, for example. We believe that everybody who passes on, he assumes the power over the living. And that is how we interpret it. All these issues of marriage, polygamy is an institution that is intended to bring women under the etiquette of masculinity. It is nothing else. As long as you are not allowed to be a slave in this context, as long as you are not allowed to allow women to marry many men, then you are only prepared to be a master. It is about privilege and power. It's about oppression of women. It is based on the fact that men is a system that disadvantages women and privileges men. It's about male superiority versus female inferiority. So all these things, if we talk about the Bible was written by men as well. So it is not a surprise that men are privileged. Even the Bible, you can see the way in which it's written. It talks about men here, men there, men, and so on, as if women are not in the scheme of things. And then for life to be there, for example, you need a man and women. And then why should we oppress women? It's precisely because of the fact that that is how it is created. It is about power, it's politics. Politics is about decision making, distribution of resources. It's also about affirmations of certain identity. In this particular context, it's about masculinity versus femininity. That is my contribution. I just want to hear the speaker's view on the issue of allowing women to marry many men, as he is justifying the fact that men can marry, because the Bible says that. But the Bible is not God, it's not the word of God, it's an interpretation. That's my argument. That's my argument that I'm thinking. So would you allow women to marry many men?
Yeah, thank you so much, Joseph K. Mr. Jibilika?
I love this argument because there is so many things that I'm picking up from it. Lack of understanding as well, and lack of history and lack of knowledge that comes with this kind of debates. Because I can tell you right now, if you look at nature, just nature, natural phenomena, you're not going far, you will notice that nature shows you the way of things. That is why you will have that males, for an example, of any animal kingdom, they will either have more than one partner. It's because of reprocreation. And the issue of, again, women allowed, underline the word allowed. When you are supposed to be allowed to do something, that means that that thing is not in you. It is not something that comes naturally with you. Men and women are not created the same. Yes, women can have many husbands. A cycle of a woman comes once. I can have 4 wives, like I've got 2 wives. I had 2 kids born in my house same year. Now that's growth, that's progress. A woman can have 2, 3 husbands. She will have umntwana after 9 months. Then she must fall pregnant again, umntwana after 9 months. Now, can you imagine that in the actual fact, do you know that every time when a woman gives birth, part of her is taken out? She loses part of her. She loses part of her. Women were never meant at the same time to have multiple partners, because the pride of a woman is it's her body. For her to be exposing her body to a number of people, that takes away the pride of a woman. You see, we talk about colonization, but that mindset that the caller had, or maybe let's say the guest has, it's a colonized mind as well. To say that now we need to degrade our women, and then from there let our women start sleeping around with a lot of husbands because of they are trying to compete with the issue as tame. You can't compete with nature. Men naturally come like that. That's why they don't need allowance. I don't have to be allowed. I don't need somebody to allow me to take a second wife. It happens on its own. It happens automatically. But if you're going to say, can they be allowed? It's because of that's not their thing. That's why you need to allow them, because of it's against nature. And again, let's go back. You talk about the issues of the Bible and say that no, colonization, this, even culturally, even tradition. Tradition never encouraged the issue of polyandry. It was in particular places, but it was not as wild and big as polygamy. It was done by particular clans, particular tribes, particular individuals. And that is why it never gained popularity, because of what? It was against human nature. Yes, we do agree and we do admit. For example, it's like now when we want to talk about issues of homosexuality, somebody will come and say, no, a man and a man can sleep together. Question, can man and a man produce a child? Can reprocreation happen? No. Anything that is against nature does not serve nature, therefore it works against nature. So you can't have men sleeping, a man and a man. There's no kids that are going to come out of there. The purpose of the sleeping is to reprocreate. So if you're going to have a woman who's going to get married to 5 husbands, and her cycle comes once, that means that that house will have 5 kids after 5 years. I can have 5 wives and have 5 kids in 1 year. Now, logic speaks now. Who's growing more than the other here? Who's multiplying more than the other here? You see, we need to put common sense in these things and not try to fight for rights and rights and rights. Common knowledge. And that's the reason why when they do a study, they show you, even when it comes to organs, they will show you men's lungs are much more larger than a woman's lungs. A whole lot of things. Men are more physical, stronger than women. A whole lot of things. We are not saying that women cannot do certain things. Yes, there are things that women can do, and there are things that men can do. And to bring back again the speaker to what he just mentioned right now here in the audience, that if you go back to history, you'll notice that in the actual fact, it was women who started polygamy. By realizing that there are certain things that they cannot do that men can do, and they realize that they all need to have a man. That is why the women of old are the stewards of polygamy. As if it's oppression. Go back to history. That's why I'm saying that these kind of debates, they come from sometimes from some of us who have not yet studied the African history. We have not studied the African origins. Because once you have studied the African origins, you will understand one thing, that in the actual fact, in the Abestembu, it was not something that men came with as part of patriarchy or whatever it is. It was women who came up with it, because they realized ukuthi sidinga indoda ukuthi izotshala la, izosebenza amasimi and all these kind of things.
So, Mr.
Excuse me.
Jibilika, let's allow another hand from Mr. Mabaso to make comments and or questions.
Can I take a follow-up on that just before Mr. Moss come in?
Okay, just a follow-up. Then from there we'll go to Mr. Mabaso.
Yeah, the speaker is talking about history as if history was handed down. History, tradition, culture, all these things are practices that society engage in. There is nothing which is God-given. And he talks about common sense. Common sense, he talks about taking all these assumptions that are taken for granted in the society. We cannot work like that. We need to question them. We need to construct all these patriarchal ideological frameworks that he is advancing in order to justify the fact that men must have many wives. So the point that I've emphasized the fact that the society is patriarchal. That is why the Bible, if you look at it, it is written from a male perspective. That is how even the knowledge that is happening, that you study, if you take it as a common sense and naturalize it, it is natural for, of course, women and men are different in terms of genetics and so forth. But it does not necessarily mean that you need to oppress the other people. So when you want to have all these women, you don't want women to have all these men. But progression is always going to be there. You cannot use a masculinist language to justify iteration of cultural imperialism. In other words, if I say patriarchy is a system that disadvantages men and women, I'm saying it is male-dominated. Everything is male-dominated. It's about men's control. It's about everything is man-identified. Everything that a man does is identified as the ideal, which is not what is supposed to happen. Women are working for themselves, my brother. Things have changed. Unlike in the past, they do not depend on men anymore, for example. And when you're talking about growth, it's like you are more concerned about the society producing as many people as possible, as long as it oppresses others. It cannot be like that. We are having these wars, we are having racism, sexism, and all these iterations as a result of this particular speak that privileges others over the others. It's like saying that white people, that is what your argument is. I'm stretching it to apply it to racism. Yeah. Racism is a system that allows a particular nation, white people in particular, to oppress black people. So you come and tell me that it is natural. That is how the nature is. You see, white people are educated and so on and so forth. You use the very same language. It does not fly, because that argument, you are basing it on common sense, on history, as if all these things are divinely ordained. These are cultural artifacts. In other words, they were made by people. And
let's do like this, Mr. Komane. Yes. Let's do like this, Mr. Komane. Yes. Let's allow Mr. Mabaso to come in, and then Mr. Jibilika to respond. Then we'll still allow you to come and do some follow-ups. Mr. Mabaso.
Yeah, thanks, Rakolot, and greetings to Jibilika and other participants. Firstly, I want to appreciate the knowledge by Mr. Jibilika presented to us. One, I'm a first son to my father, but the third child to my mother. I was born and raised in Istanbul. One, in the tradition, the families from the generation of my father's side, I think he's the only one who had 2 wives. All the other family, the grandfathers, they all had 5, 6 wives. That's why we have so huge family. But my question is to Mr. Jibilika. It's that according to his understanding or knowledge, because I have 1 wife, which I'm not even intending to take another wife. But because I'm a tradition man, I'm an African man, I want to know from Mr. Jibilika's point of view, because of my ancestors, am I representing my ancestors correctly for taking 1 wife, or am I not representing what my grandfathers, those I believe that they are my ancestors. I believe that I don't go to church. I believe that how I live my life, the protection start with my ancestors to God? Am I living to the expectation of my ancestors, Mr. Jibilika? I don't want to consult. I want to hear from you. Thanks. Thanks, Dubat.
Thank you, Mr. Baba. So, Mr. Jibilika. Mr. Jibilika, are you still there? I think he has lost his network. Mr. Jibilika? Just a minute, colleagues. Apologies, colleagues. Mr. Jibilika just experienced a lot of sort of load shedding. Let's give him a minute. He'll be reconnecting. Just give him a minute. He'll be reconnecting. But while we are waiting for him, let's allow again call Mr. Joseph K to come in and give us his perspective, because he has been arguing around issues of patriarchy, oppression, sexism, social construct. Mr. Joe K, please come in.
No, I think I've made my point, Chairperson. I'm saying the issue of patriarchy is cultural. And something that is cultural means it is done by people. It is not something that has been handed over by God. So in every society, there is no way in which there are no politics. And politics with small p are talking about influence, about distribution of resources, affirmation of certain identities. That is what politics is all about. So the issue of polygamy, for example, is one of the systems that you want to bring women under men's control. It's only but one. There are so many systems. Religion, for example, it is used to subjugate people. For example, there are so many ways. Well, that is why I'm saying that oppression is a manifestation of oppression. And oppression manifests itself differently. It manifests itself in terms of racism, which is apartheid and slavery in case of South Africa and USA in particular. And then it is also in terms of, it manifests itself in terms of nationality. The fact that you are seeing other people, particularly, we have been talking about xenophobia in South Africa. And then we, to such an extent that we discriminate against, unfortunately, Black people who are from other countries, not white people. And there is a reason why, precisely because we think that Blacks, we hate ourselves. That is what we do. So there is oppression, citation, which deals with sexual orientation. The fact that you are seeing people who are marrying men. It is constitutionally permissible in South Africa. You are saying that no, that is something which is pathological, it's deviant, it's unlike us. How are we going to procreate? And then you bring the Bible in order to justify that. So to me, patriarchy is nothing else. It's a system, it's a manifestation of oppression, because we do not, if it is women doing the very same thing, we don't allow that. That's why you are saying you are an African man. When you are saying you are an African man, in particular, you are saying that you believe that you are the head of the family. You believe that the man is the head of the family. You believe that women are inferior. So a European will come and say, I'm an European. If he says I'm an European, it means that Africans are inferior as well. Because there are certain innuendos that we are making. When you're talking, I'm an African man, I'm a European. So those particular things should not be used as something that is why I was worried about the speaker when he talks about common sense. We don't have common sense in the space of in the space of philosophy. We question things, their assumptions and claims, we dismantle and deconstruct them so that we can form the society which is inclusive. That is why we are talking about non-sexist, non-racial, inclusive society. That is what we are talking about. So if you bring patriarchy to bear as well, it is not in the interest of creating cohesion in the society. Hence, the later speaker is talking about the fact that he has got one wife, is not intending to take the second one, and so on and so forth. Well, people have got options. They've got right to do whatever that which they do, but they must know and do reflect on what is it that they're doing. Whether is it right, whether is it violating other people within the setup or the social contract, if you will. That is why we need issues to be exposed to this kind of social intercourse, where we are talking about issues of polygamy as to, is it fit for purpose? Is it something outdated, or is it something which is still relevant? To me, patriarchy, there are so many polygamies, and then they are different from culture to culture, country to culture. So there is no monolithic. It is not a homogeneous thing that is called polygamy.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Joe. I'm still trying to locate Mr. Jibilika. I just gave him a little bit of a call now. He said we log in. So, others, what's your view? Why we're still waiting for Mr. Jibilika? There was a question that was posed by Mr. Mabasu. Others who are part of the discussion, what's your view? Because it seems like Mr. Mabasu is so worried about the way his ancestors are going to view him. He's coming from a family of people who believes in polygamy, particularly the man believes in polygamy, and he doesn't believe in that. He's not going to do that, but he's worried if that is going to please his ancestors. So Mr. Mabasu is so worried. What's the view from others? We'll take Majam Patlele, then brings in Salome.
Yeah, corporate chairperson, look, I think I agree with some of the sentiment from Mr. Jibilika, because I think this is all about opinions. I cannot recall any court of law that they've actually decided about polygamy. So therefore, whatever perspective is expressed by a certain individual, of course, because of certain context that that individual is expressing, some of the aspects, they make a lot of sense. But also equally, from what Comrade Case is expressing, also is his own view. But I don't think we can vehemently say so-and-so is correct or so-and-so is not correct. I think it's a festival of ideas. We're sharing ideas. So for me, I think I'm a bit convinced from what the presenter was actually giving us, because there are a number of reasons that he actually cited. For example, if a person married to polygamy, that person possesses many views from not only one family, but many families. So for that person to belong to a particular groupings like a church or any other thing, they might as well actually compromise the principle, the values of those particular families. So that's one aspect that I actually heard from him. But also the issue of bringing the Bible as a reference, citing the book of Hebrew. It also makes sense, because like he says, don't read Bible in isolation from other scriptures. So yeah, that's all what I can say, Comrade Sediko, to say, look, let's continue expressing views, but we can't say no, the other view is not correct, but it remains a view. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mpatlele. Salome? Salom?
Hey, my phone.
Yeah, we can hear you now. We can hear you now, Salom.
Yeah. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I saw a lady there, hence I'm saying ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, this topic it's really difficult because this is not for the first time. In all platforms, we keep on discussing about polygamy. On the part of Mr. Mabaso, I won't answer because I'm the wife. I would sound personal, but let me give my views based on what is polygamy. I'm also like Mr. Mabaso. In my mother's side, my granny was married, is a second wife, and also in my father's side also, my granny is the first wife, and there's another 3 wives there. So the way I viewed polygamy, it doesn't have a good intentions the way people are doing it. Hence, the latter speaker was saying it's an individual expectations and it's an individual satisfactions. When we can speak about God, we speak about ancestors. Unfortunately, in other cultures, we don't worship ancestors, we acknowledge them. Others, they don't believe in God, and others they do. So it depends on an individual person on how you view or how you expect to live, on how you expect to do things. So what I can tell you is definitely currently how the polygamy is viewed or presented, it doesn't have a good intentions. People are not coming into a polygamy to build, but to destroy. So I don't know if it's godly or what, because if you speak of Hebrews, it speak about the Old Testament. When we speak about the New Testament, when we talk of John Green, it talks on First Corinthians chapter 7, the polygamy is ungodly. So hence I'm saying I don't want to talk about part of God. I don't want to talk about the part of ancestors because we believe in different we have beliefs in different ways. So it's an opinion. So I don't know how best this is going to be solved or what, because now the way I view polygamy, it doesn't have good intention like it used to be. If it has the way our forefathers, they presented it, I would say polygamy is a way to go. But currently, the way things are, with the way people are practicing this which thing and what. So it speaks differently. So the intentions of polygamy now, it doesn't go on how it's supposed to be. So what I would say in my closing remarks, I would say the polygamy currently, it doesn't play a good intentions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Salom, and thanks for your bravery. And I appreciate the Mabaso family, because you are free to raise your views. Keep it up, Salom and Tavis. Keep it up. I really appreciate you. Mr. Jibilika is struggling in connecting, but I'm having him on the phone. I'll just check if he can hear us, and then if he can say something so that you can tell me if you can hear him. Mr. Jibilika, can you hear our colleagues on the webinar? So just wait, Mr. Mr. Jibilika. I just want to check if they can hear you. Can you hear Mr. Jibilika on the phone from the webinar? Can you hear him?
No, we can't.
No, we can't.
Okay, just a minute. Let's sort it out. Just a minute.
Are you there?
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we are here. We are here.
Okay. Look, I was disconnected, but I remember I did pick up what the mother was saying and then the brother beforehand. Look, in a nutshell, as soon as people start to raise the issues of patriarchy and the issues of male chauvinism in relation to a African custom, that is colonization on its own. Remember, the African mind, it was all about communal growth, communal well-being. And the reason why I quote the issue of the book, which I realize as I'm listening to some of my audience say that they don't seem to be knowing their history. Black people, the majority of black people, they are of Semitic origin, which the original tongue, language, is Hebrew language. And that's the reason why you find that when you read the Old Testament, there's a lot of blackness in terms of culture and tradition. Now, when you start to hearing people kicking that out, then you start to realize that there's not much knowledge of history that one individual has. There's still a whole lot that we still need to learn about ourselves. There's a book that I wrote about the ultimate colonization of Africa, where I'm explaining who are we as black people, because that's why the Hebrew thought and the African thought works hand in hand. We are saying the same thing because basically we are of Semitic origins, we are of Hebrew stock. So it was about communal growth. It was not about an individual. It was about the societal well-being. It was not about an individual. So I do agree with Umem when she says, which is today, things are being done wrong, not the way our ancestors were doing it. That I do agree with, because there's other men who go into polygamy not understanding themselves. There's other women who agree into polygamy because of they see an easy way out. Not necessarily because of actually the person understands what she's getting into. I do agree with that. Obviously, a lot of things have been influenced by the West and how we look at things. But in Africa, we don't have male chauvinism. We don't have patriarchy. That does not exist. As soon as a person calls that, then that person is talking more on a Western mentality. Because things that were done, even when we say that certain things must not be done by women, it was not based on male chauvinism or patriarchy. It was based on protecting the woman. Africans protected their women. Because it's the same thing as people talk about issues of hunting and they say that, no, in Africa, a woman will sit home, they will not go and look for work, so it was only the men who were allowed to hunt. No. You need to get your facts right. Women worked together with us in the fields. We were tilters of the land. So I will have 4 wives that are working with me together in the fields to tilt the land, to take care of livestock. Now, that was our business. That's work. That's women's empowerment. That was our economy. When you talk about hunting, until today, game hunting of an animal, majority is done by men, even in the white community. So you need to be able to distinguish the two. When you say that women were not allowed to hunt what? If we're talking about game, obviously, until today, they're not allowed to hunt game because of the dangerous. But when you talk about hunting and you want to use hunting as corporate to go to work, women were going to work. They were going to work. A man will wake up with his wives and he will go to the fields. That was their work. Together as a whole family. They will go singing home. That was the work. You know, we didn't work with money. We worked with land. We worked with livestock. So women were allowed to work. There's no such a thing that women were oppressed. In Africa, a woman was not allowed to work. She was only supposed to stay at home and stuff like that. Nonsense. Those are people who are not learned in the African context. Women, when we wake up, will go to work. Women will go to work in the fields. Women will go singing income. I mean, that's why some of...
Okay, Mr. Jibilika, Mr. Jibilika, let's do like this. Sorry, Mr. Jibilika, let's do like this. There was a question by Mr. Mabaso. Mr. Mabaso is coming from a polygamous family. Yeah. Apparently, the uncles and the fathers, some have got 4, 5, 3 wives, and he has got only 1 wife. and is not prepared to go for another wife. His question is that going to offend, and I'm paraphrasing, is that going to offend his ancestors if he's not going to get another wife?
My brother, let me put it like this. You see, apart from the issue of ancestors, let's put the ancestors aside. Now let's talk between me and you. I've got so much respect for a man who says consciously, I am sticking to my one wife. I am not taking other wives. At the same time, he becomes faithful not to sleep with the dumpster. The word dumpster in Hebrew, that's a Hebrew word meaning a virgin. That he does not sleep outside with another woman. I've got respect for that. But I don't have respect for men who will speak against polygamy and yet they know that they've got long fingers outside. Because there's hypocrisy. There's a contradiction. Because you cannot say no against polygamy while you know what you're bamba langa paki. Then it's okay. But as long as you're going to be sleeping with other people besides your wife and you want to come and speak against polygamy, then, my brother, there is no truth in you. Then there is no truth in you and you do not know or understand yourself. Somebody is lying to himself. Because immediately you go outside and have something else besides your marriage, already you are in a polygamous state because of the word poly is about plural. So you're seeing more than one person. And I find a lot of men who say no to polygamy, fight polygamy, but yet they've got mistresses and the multiple of them. And that's a lie. You see, now that I've got a problem with it. Because I realize that we are just saying things so that we can look smart, but we are not living the life. The issue of the ancestors. Mr. Mabaso may not have a problem with the ancestors depending ukuthi uphethwe iswele siphi. Maybe the reason angafuni isithembu lekhehla limphethe kwakuyikhehla vele elangenalo isithembu. Because remember what happens is that labantu bayabuya. That's why my other book, the missing link, where I'm talking about African spirituality, I'm saying bayabuya labantu, nothing goes away. They do come back. And that's why in the African context, we will not name a child until we see the character, behavior yakhe, then we know ukuthi ubani lo buyile. Maybe lo baba okhuluma ngayo Mr. Mabaso, maybe uphethwe umuntu vele ukuthi anganaso isithembu within the family. And that's why his views will be the way they are about that isithembu enangasifuni. And that is okay, as long as it's aligned with the swele sakhe. But if ever wena yourself uphethwe yikhehla, my brother, you will have a stamp. And if you are a woman who have no gogo, my sister, who's on that's the reason why you find yourself as a woman who are proposing this table as if you are written this table in your forehead. It's because of there is an energy that you're traveling with that is attracting those men. You see, the universe works with energies. And I can tell you right now, if you have no gogo, he will attract amadoda stable. That's what he wants for you. That's what he knows. Because you are not living for yourself. You are living because of nothing goes away. And that is the reason why when people have deja vus, it's not a deja vu. It's just that you are remembering because of you once lived before. So we keep on coming back until we perfect what we're supposed to do. So, but that's a topic for another day. I think that thing is quite very, very much big. And if you look at it from the, educational degree, masters, all those kind of things, we're not going to get it right. You need to understand the spiritual dynamics and understand the more mood or humble kunabantu ohamba nabo kunekhehla ohamba nalo kunogogojizo ohamba naye for you to be, and that's a spirit guide, by the way, and for you to be able to connect and get your life right, you need to connect with this person and know certain things. And that's why going back home and asking your family, man, what does that, it becomes very much important. Then you do find, obviously, the clever blacks who don't really want to get involved in that space, and then they will always demonize everything and become so westernized about it. I feel so sorry for those, because
Okay, Mr. Jibilika, let's take another question before we're closing. We're about to wrap up. There's a question that says, apparently you said the kings are not supposed to be associated or converted to churches. So the question is that, is it a taboo or does it constitute a conflict of interest? Okay.
Okay, you see, I like the way that you use it. It results in the conflict of interest. When a king, remember when you become a king, when you say you are a king, you are a person that we look up to as a nation of mhlambe amaXhosa or amaNdebele, that knows the history, knows the culture, the custom, the tradition. Uyindlu whereby when things go wrong in our families, we can say, Siya enkosini ngoba. You become the prophet, you become the steward of the culture yethu le. Remember back in the days before, the Western involvement, kings, first and foremost, were not chosen based on bloodline. Kings were chosen based on their ability to connect to the next realm. And that is why those who became the kings of old, they were actually by nature prophets who could see and communicate with the other realm. And that's how kings were chosen. Then from there, with the interference of the West, everything changed now. It started to become a bloodline. And that is why you'll notice that there will be a good king who's guided by the ancestors. And then after him, there will arise an evil king who is part of his son. Because of now, that was more of a genetic thing. No, we choose kingship by blood. We choose kingship by blood. But in the originality, it was not done like that. Kings were chosen based on their ability to connect to the next realm. Can you see? Can you get us information on the other side? How do we go to battle? How do we win the battle? What must be done? So these people, that's why there are rituals that are done when a king has to assume the position of being a king. Now, the issue is this. At the end of the day, if you become a king, and then now here you are converting to a particular religion. What are you doing? You have misled the whole nation. The whole nation. Because now we're going to have to follow you and convert to that thing. That is why there are certain kings that are not spoken of when it comes to our history. Because some of them, they refused to actually even allow the missionaries to come and build schools in their own lands. Because they said, what is this thing? We have our own way. I mean, King Kukuni questioned the issue of the missionaries to say that why you come and build schools here? Because of what you are teaching here actually is teaching self-hate to our people. And that's why they had to build their own schools. Now, kings are stewards, and you cannot afford to have a king converting to a religion. You can't. And that is why some of us, we feel very, very much disturbed by what we saw when Isilo Samabang was being placed in the chair, whereby there was an anointing oil and there was a ring. That has never happened in the kingdom of Zululand. It has never happened. It's a taboo because of what are you trying to say by touching the head of the king? So certain things are changing slowly and in a negative way. And people do not know, they think that no, it's just life, it's just life. But it shows that another hand or other people have taken over. As a king, you remain true to the tradition of your ancestors because of they select you and they put you in that position so that you can represent them and continue with what they've started. Not for you to change into.
Okay, Mr. Jibilika, let me just allow people to raise their last comments, and then you'll be the last one to close. Any comments from participants on Facebook? Yes. And also from the webinar? Any question, any comment? Anyone wants to say something?
Okay, can I say something?
Okay, Joke.
Sorry. Yeah, thank you very much. I'm still saying that there is no way you are going to talk about polygamy and we say leave aside issues of patriarchy, issues of racism, and issues of colonialism and imperialism. You see, these things are interconnected. And then I am still arguing that the way in which, and then the speaker is representing reality in one-dimensional way. He is talking about the fact that things are going are negative. There are also other things that are positive in culture as well. And then he's representing culture and the tradition as if it is something that we have to, business as usual, a common sense approach. That is very problematic. That is why I've been disagreeing with that, to say that we cannot. If there are good things about culture, we need to learn them and take them forward. If there are bad things, we need to deconstruct them, right? We need to deconstruct them, because these issues are linked to oppression. And oppression, with a specific example of the very same topic, polygamy. It manifests itself in gender-based violence that women are victims of as we are speaking today, in exploitation of women, and so on and so forth. And you cannot talk about sexism. It is based on sexism. That is what I'm saying. And sexism is linked to racism. Well, if you are saying that men should take many women, and women are not allowed to do that, and we are talking about culture and spiritual and so on and so forth. So basically, if we bring the issue of racism, we'll say that, okay, white people should rule black people precisely because black people are intellectually inferior, and it is natural that white people should rule. And I'm in disagreement with that as well. So context matters. There is no way individually are going to talk about patriarchy in isolation, and it keeps on going back to history and so on and so forth, as if everything that was done in history was right, God-given, and so on. We need to change it. The society is shifting, is dynamic. We keep on changing, taking all these good things and bad things, discarding the bad things as we go. And then I had the question saying, will my ancestors appreciate me? I am sure that there is no one with cultural authority who's going to tell me whether my ancestors will appreciate or not appreciate me. I speak with my ancestors in my own way. I don't need any other intervention, because that intervention is going to distort reality with regard to the connection between me and my ancestors as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Let me, Mr. Jibilika, let me go to the Facebook, check if there are any questions, then you will be the last to close. Just a minute, let me go to Facebook. Okay. Yeah, let me go to Facebook and check. And there is a comment which says patriarchy and chauvinism exist, Mr. Jibilika. The other one, it says, Mr. Mabaso, let's break the generational or bloodline cycle of polygamy. The other one says, should we follow on the footsteps of our fathers? I don't believe in cultural and traditional things. Sorry, but I'm not against those who believe in the culture. Secondly, the other one says, we are all born kings and queens. We are all royal family in the kingdom of God. The other one says, we need a second session on this topic. Thought-provoking. Well done, my brother. So, colleagues, let me allow Mr. Mabaso then to say the last, then we'll go back to Mr. Jibilika. Mr. Mabaso.
Yeah, thanks, Tubat. I don't have a question, but I just want to appreciate the knowledge Mr. Jibilika gave us today. And I agree with the last message that I think we need another session of this topic again and engage it more on it. I'll look into the culture. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Jibilika, your closing remarks.
This is, I so wish it's so unfortunate that, we are so dedicated to technology. I love to have these topics when people are so much in connect, when we are connected and we see each other. They are very much interesting. I mean, there's a podcast that I normally do Mondays and Fridays, but I'm enjoying this because you get to hear different views on our society and people of how we look at things. I must say this. Mr. Mabaso, together with everybody else, I do agree with the way they're coming across to say, Guti, there are certain things that in the actual fact, we need to deal with. At the same time, I do understand, Guti, what happened, which is a challenge. As South Africans, we have never been through a system in terms of whereby when we got our independence, and now there was a new system of education that came in to teach us our history. Remember that most of us, when we talk history, we will talk history from the days of Oshaka, Abo Soshangan, and all these other people. But very few of us have even went as deep as getting into the Kemetic history, from where we came from the history in Timbuktu, the history in Tanana, where we came from. I mean, when I listen sometimes when we raise the argument of Christianity versus, Hebrew thought and the black thought, and there seems to be a very serious confusion when it comes to that we read Christianity and the Hebraic thought as one thing, which is not. Because if you look at where we come from as black people, and you look at the tribes that came down, and you look at certain traditional practices and cultural behavioral patterns and all these things that are being done, you will notice that abantu abamnyama have been practicing certain things that you find in the Old Testament without them reading the Bible, without them reading the book. And they will tell you what you see into this. Imvelo kwenziwa kanje. And you say, but uyifunde kuphi le nto? Uthi no, nayifundiswa baba wami, ubaba mafundiswa mkhulu. And that is the oral law, the Mishnah in Hebrew. So in the actual fact, ours has been the oral law. Now, you look at those practices, you look at all of those things, and you will start to realize, no, man, these people, there's somewhere where they come from. For an example, there are certain cultures whenever you do certain things, you must face the north, where the sun comes from. And you ask yourself, why? Why do we have to face there? And somebody says, no, but we came from that side. Then you go back in the Old Testament and you read the book of Kings, where Solomon says to the children of Israel, when you are taken away from the land and you are taken to slavery, you shall face the side of the temple when you make your prayers and you make your sacrifices, even though you are in a foreign land. You shall face where the temple was. So there's a lot of things that when you see them and you observe how black people are doing things traditional, they make you understand that in the actual fact, these are of Semitic origins. Unfortunately, not all of us know that information. And that's why I will recommend certain books by Credo Mutwa, Indaba My Children, and other books by Chancellor Williams, The Destruction of Black Civilization and the Stolen Legacy, so that people can go and read and do research, because there is a whole lot. And that's the reason why black people were under siege, got to be colonized, the introduction of TBs, HIVs, and all the sicknesses to try and destroy the black race. And that's the reason at the same time, the issue of contamination of food, wrong information, wrong education, and all these kind of things, because someone is working on a plan to make sure that we remain distorted. So when we talk about issues of polygamy, today it becomes like, it leaves a bitter taste in some of us. But at the end of the day, if you go back and look at polygamy holistically, you will realize that it was more constructive than destructive. For it now to be portrayed as if it has been a destructive thing and then oppressing and all those kind of things, that's not entirely true. Like I asked the question and I said, well, say for an example, every man takes one woman. What about the ones that don't have? Because of statistically, there will never be a balance. There will never be a balance. The universe allowed it to be like that. So what about the ones who do not have? What are you saying about them? What should happen to them? Because if you really care about women, and you really care about women's protection and women's rights, and I do admit to what Seh has just said about the issues of physical abuse and stuff like that. I don't agree with that. I don't promote that. I don't believe that should happen at all. I mean, the issue of hitting a woman, your wife, it's like you're hitting yourself. Something must be wrong upstairs. But my issue is this: who's going to protect all these other ones? Who's going to look after all these? Yes, they can look after themselves. I mean, even if a woman can work and earn 100,000, but remember one thing: you are a human being. You are wired in a particular way. You need to have a man next to you. You need to have that affection of a man. So at the end of the day, you being by yourself throughout, It's against your nature. So we need to talk about these kind of things because that's the reality of things. I can be taking care of myself as a woman. I can be working. I can be a director, whatever the case might be. But at the end of the day, the way I am wired, I need to have a man. I need to have somebody who's going to pamper me. I need to have somebody who's going to give me a hug. Someone's going to hold me close. Someone's going to make love to me. I need that. So we are not addressing it when we're saying that, oh no, but it's all patriarchy. It's all oppressive treatment. What about the ones who don't have? Can somebody help me there? What about the ones who don't have? Have you got an answer for that? How do they continue surviving in this universe without having a man?
Thank you so much, Mr. Jibilika, and thank you so much for availing your time. And to all the participants, we really appreciate your participation in our webinars. This is the fourth annual husband and boyfriend conference. To those who knows the Progressive Socio-Economic Investment Institute, we took a decision 4 years ago that we are not going to have this fake husband and boyfriends conference on the 14th of February. We'll have the real one. We took that decision, and every year around February, we have this type of a conference. Last year, we took a resolution that this year we'll be talking about polygamy. And I can see now there is a demand that we need to have this session again. And last year, those who participated in our workshop, our conference, said when we have this conference, we must also invite women into this conference. We thank Mr. Jibilika for availing himself. We thank all the participants. And we had to that we need to have this session again. We had to. We will consult as trustees of the Progressive Socio-Economic Investment and obviously organize a follow-up session on this. And we really appreciate your time. And thank you so much for participating. What we are going to do now is that we are having